everyone, today we will discuss and talk about late Victorian era around 1870 until 1901. Late Victorian era is an era at the end of the Victorian era. This era ended after the death of Queen Victoria.
But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Annisa Rizki and I am a student from English Literary Department, Mulawarman University. So, let's move on to the materials.
First of all, in this era, there is decay of Victorian values. Issues about the emergence of modern Victorian or reject early Victorian. The values, beliefs, and standards of personal and social behavior were already being challenged, sometimes angrily, by a new generation of intellectuals and writers. This period have the crucial feature that was the rise of imperialism by Great Britain. During this time, not only emerged as the most powerful nation, but by the end of 19th century, almost one quarter of the entire Earth's surface came under British rule. So, because of that, the topic of imperialism has been touched upon by many famous writers through their writings, such as Richard Hogarth and Rudyard Kipling. They poured the imperialism into their works. And then, this era also happened the First Boer War. The British Empire, which had expanded under Queen Victoria and in 1900 had reached 13 million square miles, also began to disintegrate. The First Boer War, that occurred around 1899 until 1902, which was fought by the British to establish control over the Boer republics in South Africa, marked the beginning of rebellion against British imperialism. Irish Question. The Irish Question was the issue debated among mainly the British ruling classes from the early 19th century until the 1920s of how to respond to Irish nationalism and the calls for Irish independence. The press came to prominence as a result of the Acts of Union in 1800, which merged the Kingdom of Ireland with the Kingdom of Great Britain to create the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and merged the Parliament of Ireland into a single governing body with the Parliament of Great Britain. The Parliament of the United Kingdom, based in Westminster. Doing so forced the British political class to pay attention to the state of Ireland and its people. Bismarck's Germany became a rival power of Britain. The emergence of Bismarck's Germany confronted England with powerful threats to naval and military position, and also United States became a rival power of Britain. Recovery of United States after Civil War provided new and serious competition. And in this era, there's economic depression and it led to mass migration. So, what is the literature in late Victorian era? And we will talk about it next slide. There is a term socialism. The British socialist movement re-emerged in the 1880, a strong critique of capitalism, which was voiced by various groups of social critics, literary figures, and working-class militarists, led to the formation of three distinct strains of late Victorian socialism. The first one is the Social Democratic Federations and the Social Leagues, and the second one is Fabian Society and its predecessor, the Fellowship of the New Life, and the third one is the Ethical Socialists together with the Independent Labour Party. The most characteristic representative of ethical socialism were Thomas Hill Green, Edward Carpenter, John Ruskin, and William Morris. So, because of that, there are quite a lot of literary works that take this theme or term into the works. The mood of melancholy. Melancholy, a past form of modern depression, was experienced and treated in a very different manner in the 19th century. Poems like the Suicide Soliloquy illuminate a similarity in the symptoms experienced by an individual in the 19th century to that of a modern man. But the societal perception and the attitude towards the disease changed multiple times throughout the course of the last 3 centuries. And there's also the aesthetic movement in literature, when people believe in art for art's sake. So, what is the meaning with art for art's sake? It is when art's purpose is to be beautiful, not useful, and art should provide pleasure. This movement, inspired by the Romantic, but championed the artificial over the natural, such as garden of exotic flowers, expressive architecture, or fancy costume. It is sought to immerse and overwhelm the sense. This art is more important than truth. The novel. Let Victorian fiction might express doubt and uncertainties, but in aesthetic terms it displays a new sophistication and self-confidence. In the 1890, the three-volume novel, with its panoramic vistas and proliferating subplots, began to give way to more narrowly focused one-volume novels. At the same time, a gap started to open between popular fiction and the literary or art novel. The flowering of realist fiction was also accompanied, perhaps inevitably, by a revival of its opposite, the romance. In this era, realism continued to flourish. However, sometimes encouraged by the example of European realists and naturalist novelists, the 1890s saw intense concern with the social role of women. Literary comedy. Victorian literature began with such humorous books as Salter Researches and the Pickwick Papers. Despite the crisis of faith, the condition of England question, and the act of modernism, this note was sustained throughout the century, and may in fact this era have been the greatest era of comic writing in English literature. The poetry. The 1890 witnessed a flowering of lyric verse, influenced intellectually by the critic and novelist Walter Pater and formally by contemporary French practice. Such writing was widely attacked as decadent for its improper subject matter and its consciously immoral doctrine of art for art's sake. This stress upon artifice and the freedom of art from conventional moral constraint went hand in hand, however, with an exquisite craftsmanship and a devotion to instant emotional and sensory effects. Drama. Early Victorian drama was a popular art form, appealing to an uneducated audience that demanded emotional excitement rather than intellectual subtlety. However, in 1890, the outstanding decade of dramatic innovation, Oscar Wilde crowned his brief career as a playwright with one of the few great high comedies in English, The Importance of Being Earnest, in 1895. At the same time, the influence of Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen was helping to produce a new genre of serious problem plays, such as Pinnero's The Second Mrs. Thackeray in 1893. J.T. Green founded the Independent Theatre in 1891 to foster such work and staged there the first plays of George Bernard Shaw and translation of Ibsen. So, The next one is we're gonna talk about the most famous writers and their works at the late Victorian era. The first one is Thomas Hardy. Thomas Hardy remains one of the great novelists of the late Victorian era, known for his many novels, short stories, and poems. The example of his work is The Mayor of Casterbridge. The second one is Herbert George Wells, or known as H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells is best known for his fictional works. The example of his works is The Time Machine, Conan Doyle. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was a Scottish physician, writer, and spiritualist. He is most famous in late Victorian era for being the creator of Sherlock Holmes. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is a collection of 12 short stories by Arthur Conan Doyle. It contains the earliest short stories featuring the consulting detective Sherlock Holmes.
After knowing about late Victorian era, I can conclude and learn that there are many conflicts that exist in this era. However, through existing events and knowledge that continues to evolve, literature also continues to develop at this time. This is proven by the increasing popularity of science fiction works by H.G. Wells and also mystery works by Conan Doyle. And that's all for me. I'm sorry if there are any mistakes such as wrong information or my English or even my pronunciation. Thank you for your attention. Good luck everyone!